Hi, I'm Jim Thompson. Welcome to the Furniture Workshop. Today I'm going to build a portable workbench. Now, this is a great project to build when you're first starting out, for two reasons really. First of all, they're very easy to make, and second, it's something you're going to use every time you get down into the shop. I actually recommend that you build two workbenches at the same time. Make a full-size bench for your primary work area, and then make a smaller one like this, which you can use as a tool tray, and that really goes a long way in helping you stay organized. You have a spot for the furniture piece you're actually working on, and then all your tools can be right off to the side. Keeps things flowing very nicely. So next up, I want to go over some of the design aspects of the bench I came up with here, and then we'll get to building this one. Okay, so I wanted to spend a quick minute just going over the design of this particular workbench. For the top, I've got particle board, 5/8" thick particle board. For the stretchers, we're actually going to use a knotty pine tongue and groove. We'll cut away the tongue and groove elements, but that material is actually very inexpensive. We'll use that for the one we'll build today. And the legs are actually strapping. We've got two pieces of strapping laminated together with coarse drywall screws. In fact, I'm using drywall screws throughout this. There's no complicated joinery. We're just going to drill some pilot holes and put the screws in, and then we'll be done. For the casters on the bottom, the wheels I've got here, we've got some locking casters, which are great. Once you figure out where you want this thing for the day, you can lock it down, and it won't skate around on you. All right, I wanted to go over the tools you'll need for this particular project. First and foremost, you want to have a good skill saw that we'll use to rough cut all the stock. And actually, we'll do all our final cuts for the top using this as well with a wooden guide. And next up is the benchtop table saw. We'll do all our final cuts for the legs and the stretchers on that. It provides a much more accurate cut than the skill saw. If you are on a budget, you can do everything with the skill saw, but I recommend if you want to do things real accurately, get yourself one of these down at Home Depot. And next up, we'll want to have a hand drill with bits, and we'll use that to make all our pilot holes and then do all the assembly we'll be doing on this one with drywall screws. Framing square, keep everything honest, make sure everything is squared up nicely. And then finally a tape measure for all your measurements. So that's about it for this one. Pretty simple list of stuff you'll need. And I just want to spend next a quick minute on the lumber we'll use. So here's the lumber we'll need for this project. Starting off with the top, I'm going to use some particle board for the top. My table will have a 3/4 inch thick piece. I recommend for a workbench this size, you go with at least a 5/8 inch thick top. It's a great material. It's very inexpensive. It's very stable. It doesn't warp. And it's a great flat work surface to use versus some plywood or other materials you can use that are a little bit more rougher on your hands in your projects. So that's the top. Next up is a material we'll use for the stretcher, which is a tongue and groove pine, knotty pine. This is, again, very inexpensive. This runs in the Northeast about 85 cents a lineal foot. What we'll need to do with this stuff, though, is cut away the tongue and the groove off either end on the table saw. And it's got this kind of decorative molding that people use it for their walls. What I'll end up doing is just hiding that. We'll have that facing inward, so we won't see that on the final workbench. In the end, you'll get a lot of strips like this that have the tongue and the groove piece. I haven't figured out what to do with these yet, but someday I will. And on the legs, we'll be using a 1/3 inch strapping. We'll actually use two pieces laminated together with drywall screws, and that's plenty strong. And again, this stuff is as inexpensive as the rest. 12-foot lengths of these go for well under $3. And that's about it. And then the spacer, actually, we'll be using a piece of 4/3 inch pine stock to hold the wheel onto the leg. We use drywall screws to drive that in, and then some additional screws to hold the actual wheel on. So here's the hardware for our workbench, starting off with our zip ties and power strip. Well, actually, at the very end of the project, we'll attach the power strip to the leg and secure it with some zip ties. We actually have a couple of drywall screws in the back to hold it on there, but I always add a couple of zip ties too. Keeps it on there good. And that just makes things a heck of a lot easier when you're running multiple tools onto your bench. You don't have to have extension cords running all over the place. Real convenient. And next up are the casters. These are probably the most pricey item on our workbench. They're about $7 a piece around here. I recommend you get a good size caster. You can kind of tell how big that is. You can get them a little less expensive and smaller, but they tend to catch on wood chips and it gets really annoying. So I think this particular size is a good one, or even actually a little bit bigger. And they'll roll over extension cords and whatnot. It makes things a little more convenient in the shop. And next up, I'd use a 1 1/4 inch coarse drywall screw. Hopefully you can see that at home. That's the assembly, the piece we'll need for just about everything on this project. We'll use that to attach the two pieces of legs together for the strapping. That'll attach the stretchers to the legs. And so that's the bulk of kind of the joints of the project, if you will. And then next up are 2-inch length coarse drywall screws. We'll use those to attach these little spacers that'll hold the casters onto the legs. 4 of those in there will be real nice and secure. And then next up we have the inch thick drywall screw. That'll hold the caster onto this piece. And I'm adding a couple of washers on there so the screw doesn't go right through the pre-drilled hole on the caster. And that'll also take away a little of the depth so the screw won't go all the way through. And that about rounds out the hardware. So not too involved, not too expensive. And next up, I think we're actually going to build some legs. Okay, let's get started on building the legs. So we'll take this piece of strapping. It's a 6-footer. We'll be able to cut this in half and get the 2 pieces we'll need for each leg. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this off at 36 inches. And that'll give us at least an inch oversize on each piece. What we'll do is we'll attach it together with the coarse drywall screws, and then we'll trim it up to its final length on the table saw. What you want to also do when you're designing your plans, if we are putting casters like the one we're doing today, if you're going to put some wheels on it, you need to add about, depending on the size wheel you get, you need to actually add about 4 inches of height, or I should say subtract 4 inches of height. So you get your table dimension exactly where you want.